You got to mention it earlier. I found it interesting. You mentioned her dating a Jewish guy. So Coretta had a little white chocolate going on early on.
I ain't mad at her.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Four Friends in a Book podcast. I'm Chris Colston, joined here with my friends Isaiah Tukes, Kimberly Lake, and Laria Reed. And again, we are Four Friends in a Book. So first of all, Happy New Year. We in a new year. We made it to January 2023. Happy that you guys are with us. And of course, we're reading books over here. For those of you that are new to the channel, Four Friends in the Book is our monthly podcast series where we have a discussion that's centered around the book that we're reading together. And we meet here for the review of that book, to discuss it, and just kind of talk about it. So somewhat of a book club, book review, mixed with just table talk amongst friends. And of course, at the end, we hit y'all with these rants from our brother Isaiah Tukes, Mr. Rant Man himself. So again, if you're new to the channel, go back, check us out, to get some old episodes. And for those that have been supporting us from day one, again, we appreciate you guys. Continue to like, share, comment, and give us that feedback. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's jump into it. Again, we're in a new year, made it to 2023, January. Have a very fitting book for this month. So actually coming off of the celebration of the famed and well-known Dr. Martin Luther King. And so we're actually reading a memoir, not of him, but of his late wife, Miss Coretta Scott King. So the book for January, My Life, My Love, My Legacy by Coretta Scott King. So again, very fitting book for this month, and a very good book to kind of kick us off in this new year. This memoir told by Reverend Dr. Barbara Reynolds. Again, this life of Coretta Scott King. It really goes back and gives an account of her life growing up, before Martin, after meeting Martin, and even kind of post Martin. And yeah, look, I want to read a quick quote. I'm a quote man, so I think this kind of sets the tone for this book, and kind of caps it off. So the quote I found was, "Too many people saw me just as Mrs. King and assumed I was riding the coattails of my husband's notoriety. They did not see Coretta, who was gifted, talented, and had ideas as well as passion to carry out Martin's mission for all people. They saw Mrs. King, but not Coretta." And I thought that was very telling because we all know, Martin Luther King, and we know Coretta Scott King as being his wife. But in this book, she really unpacked and give us kind of the behind the scenes story and her perspective as well. So let's get into it. Let's unpack this book. Look, y'all already know my first question. I hate it every month. You know what it is. What were your overall thoughts about this book? And if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be? And I'm going to come to Miss Kimberly Lake on this one to kick us off. Kim, what are your thoughts?
Actually, so, for a while now, Will was my number one memoir. But after reading this book, I actually have to put her book at number one. I thought this book was like phenomenal. When I read it, listened to it, it felt like she was just telling her story. Like I was just going through her life. She had such a rich life. And it's a shame because like the quote you just read, I was like, I really don't know nothing about Mrs. King. Like all I really knew about her was like she's married to Martin. I would remember seeing pictures about her, but when I heard her life, I'm like, she did so much. She was involved in so many things and so many historical events and was like really like pushing things to happen. So I was just really shocked at all the things that she did. And it was kind of sad because I was like, we have all these millions, well, not millions, but all these movies about Martin. But I was like, she need her own film or her own like series
Mhm.
because her life is just as important. And a quote that I like from her book was she was like, I was more than Martin's wife when he was alive and more than a widow than when he died. And I think that was perfect for me because that's kind of just how I reference her. Like it was just MLK's widow. But I think she's a phenomenal woman. I mean, I learned a lot from her life. I was like, if she was alive, I wanted to be her friend and go out to eat and all kinds of stuff because she just seemed real cool. So I love the book. I would give it a 10, and it actually bumped Will out of my number one spot for a memoir.
Ooh,
Mhm.
okay, look, that's big. We was 2022. I think Will Smith book was kind of the top of the list and kind of the number one pick throughout the year. So it's kind of big. You say that Miss Coretta Scott King has not knocked Will Smith out of that top spot as far as memoirs. Okay. All right, come to my brother Isaiah, man. What are your thoughts about this book? And if you had to rate it on a
Mhm.
scale of 1 to 10, what would that be?
My thoughts about this book was I just like to see, that we saw Coretta Scott King blossom into leadership on her own. She talks about the challenges of, creating and nurturing, even her fifth child, the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. And she was also an activist, grassroots lobbyist for her own right. She was influential in getting the law made that for Martin Luther King Day, a national holiday, as well known as the legislation that she was able to push. And can you imagine going to Congress 15 years in a row, all to be shut down because they would not approve this day? Talk about fortitude, talk about tenacity, talk about she knew what she wanted and she went by and she grabbed life by the bullhorns to make that happen in support of getting, that day and honoring, her husband. I think that she's a great person to look up to. She was big on voting, big on her anti-war stance and feminism and attacking apartheid. We learned that she did make mistakes and that she learned from them. And we heard her anger, especially when, her, especially with other women in the leadership in the movement, that they were sidelined by male, leadership that was more influential than the women were. And she shares even her feelings about the presidential support or the lack of support that, when she was doing her causes. And like Kim stated earlier, the Coretta Scott King that I knew was just basically the photos of her marching with her husband in black and white that we learned in the history books. But what the history books don't teach you is the full story that we actually get from reading her memoir. She was influential, as many women were in the civil rights movement, either due to her even being pushed to the side, but she just still made it through. She still had the tenacity and that drive. And that's what I actually admire about her from actually reading this book.
Mhm.
I even highly recommend people to actually read this book and, learn more about her story. And I do rate this book a 9.
Okay, that's good. So we got a 10, we got a 9. All right. Maria, what you got? We coming to you next. What are your thoughts about this book?
I give the book a 20. Look, it's been my favorite book for a long time. And I always tell people when they talk about Martin Luther King, have you read Coretta Scott King's book? I always say that. And they're like, no. I'm like, you need to read it because it's so good. She gives so much context to what was happening behind the scenes on a lot of the things. Like, I didn't realize that Martin Luther King was nonpartisan. He didn't promote a Democrat or a Republican. But the only reason why they went with the Kennedys is because of how they came through and really helped him and assisted him in Alabama when he was sleeping on those cold cots. And Daddy King was like, look, this is who we vote for because they were going to vote for someone else. And so I just think it was so many of those moments behind the scenes and even from her upbringing with her father and their home being burned. And I mean, she was like built to be with him. And I think that, there's certain couples, you talk about power couples. That's what a power couple is, not
That
someone where y'all can just take good photos and be on Instagram. It's like you both are working in a mission together to get something done great. And it was like they were supposed to be together. And it's even funny when I was reading a book about how she thought he was short and he wasn't her type. And, when she met him and she even dated a guy, I think he was Jewish. And she had her own career going, and she was doing her own thing, and she gave all of that up to be behind this young preacher who didn't really have any money, and it was really about something bigger than themselves. And so I absolutely love the book. I think everybody should read it because it gives so much. It's just rich in so many different facets. It's right, my life, my love, my legacy. And I really, really, really enjoyed that book. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that. Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. Really? Wow. But it's really good. And I feel bad that it took me this long to know about her the way that we read about her in that book. And I just think that they just did her a disservice, as well as what's the other guy? Juanita, who was Dr. King's partner, where they did everything together? Abernathy. Juanita Abernathy, who was the wife of Ralph Abernathy. Same thing happened with her. She was a bright woman. I mean, the women of these men were the ones who were really pushing a lot of everything. They were in the forefront, but they really got it done. So, excellent book. 20, 50, 100. One of my favorite books.
All right, yeah, you guys all bring up good points. So we got what was it, a 10? We got a 9. What was your rating?
20, 50.
20.
Okay, 20. So I thought this was a great book as well. I think this is kind of the epitome of, you hear the notion of behind every great man, or every strong man or good man, there's this, a great woman as well. And I think Coretta Scott's story is the epitome of that. I think she, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was just such a phenomenal person. And I think she may have been in his shadow to us, but in reality, she was really walking right beside him. She was his sounding board throughout this process, throughout this civil rights movement. She was going out doing things herself for the movement, and she was just as active in this movement. But again, he was kind of the face of the movement. Similar to, you hear about other people that were in the civil rights stance and people that took on that position. It's just sometimes you had faces of the movement, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was definitely the face. But I think this story here, My Life, My Love, My Legacy, really showcases and highlights that she was really just as much involved as a part of that process as anyone else. So I thoroughly enjoyed the book as well. Great story. I don't know if she beat Will for me. I don't know. It was a good story, but I think, y'all can hear me?
Yes, we hear you. We just saying, no, you ain't right about that.
She didn't beat Will.
I agree with you.
Will Smith was not there in them streets about to get killed. He got their kids getting bombed and stuff. Sorry.
So yeah, Will wasn't in them streets. He wasn't about that life. I mean, totally different time zone, different time periods. But great read. I think I would give it an 8. A strong 8. So good book. Look, they're really looking at me in disgust over here because I got 20.
We'll let you have your little 8.
All right, so even speaking from that perspective, again, we kind of talked about her book, and you all kind of touched on different points as far as her growing up. Kim mentioned her growing up, and even her childhood and some of the hardships that her father experienced. Isaiah kind of touched on her kind of political influence and things that she's done. And Laria, you just kind of spanned the whole journey of her life. But even with that, was there a particular part of this book or a story that was more, I guess, impactful to you, or that kind of really stood out? Was there a particular moment within this, like, it was hearing her story that really stood out to you? And I'm gonna come to my brother on this one to kick it off, man. Was there a moment or a story within this book that really just kind of stood out to you, and it was very impactful for you?
Well, I actually had 2 stories that I actually was able to, not relate to, but I was impactful for listening. It was the first one was when Coretta was advised to, after her husband died, just to stay at home and raise her kids. Can you imagine if she had listened to their advice? How no legislation would have been passed on behalf of her husband, no king sitter. And the king sitter actually trained other leaders to actually do the nonviolence and to go out and to promote. And she was even, in her own right, she was astute, she was passionate, she was compassionate, but most important, she was a transformation leader. And she was much more, as you all said, that she was much more than MLK's wife. She had her own opinions, her own calling, her own set of gifts, and her own things that she actually accomplished. And I understand why she wanted to separate Mrs. King, from Coretta, because in her own right, she as she stated, from growing up, she wanted to be much more than a wife. She would be bored to death if all she did was just sit home and raise kids. And the second point I want to make too, I think Laria touched on it just a little bit, but I want to talk about Ralph David Abernathy, one of her husband's best friends. He was even there when he got shot in Memphis, Tennessee, even was there to hold the blood, from coming out. But I think it was a hurtful story to her for him to actually write the book on the alleged infidelities of MLK. Even the night prior to him getting shot or assassinated, stating that he was allegedly with someone else. And I know, for me, I can deal a lot, but, for her, that was a lot to actually take in, to actually process. And, it wasn't just anyone saying that. They were family friends to the king. They raised their kids together. That's a different kind of hurt when a person that you think that you can depend on and portrays you just to sell a story, that's something that I just can't deal with. That's a lot. And I think that betrayal, she discussed it, but I think that, it took a toll on her because she had to constantly defend, like she knew who her husband was. She knew what her husband was about. And for you to write that in a book and just to sell a story, I don't, that's something that, that's a hurtful, painful feeling. And I connected with that story.
Okay, that's good. That's good. All right, Laria, look, I know you was in love with this book, but do you have a particular moment or a section or a part that was really, I guess, kind of impactful or really stood out to you?
It was a lot. It was a whole lot of I was sitting here like, which one was I going to say? And I can't remember it. But the thing that was the most impactful to me throughout the book, especially when she was talking about she and Martin and their life, was just the imminent, we know it's coming, he's going to die at some point. Like that lingering, always, is this going to be the last time we see each other? Like, what kind of woman is built to just be like, I don't know if this will be the last time somebody's going to kill my husband, dealing with death threats all the time, having children, small children, and knowing this is going to happen at some point. I just don't, I ain't built like that, and I'm just like, what kind of, that's how you got some kind of power other than yourself, through God. But when I was reading and listening to that over and over, it was always throughout, when she was talking about her life. Yeah, we knew it was coming. Yeah, just not knowing if this was it. Yeah, I remember when we went to the Nobel Peace Prize, but we didn't know if this was going to be the time of this. I'm like, man, like how did you live like that? And they did it well and came out in front of the cameras and acted like nothing was going on. But I know just for her to know I'm going to probably eventually be a single parent and do this on my own. Like, that's crazy to me. But yeah, that's the most impactful moment to me throughout the book when she talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. I think for me, it was just hearing her story. And I think just the amount of poise and just the dignity she maintained throughout this overall experience. I mean, dealing with people like Isaiah mentioned, people that were, a part of the movement from the beginning, but still questioning their loyalty, and after Martin's assassination, and then people trying to, I guess, kind of capitalize on certain movements. She talks about my boy Jesse Jackson, and we've all heard stories about him and some of his political activities or whatever. But even to be the bigger person They had a kind of a rough relationship, but
Mhm.
even to be the bigger person and still to honor him in certain aspects, this shows the poise and the dignity that she has as a person. Larry, you got to mention it earlier. I found it interesting. You know, you mentioned her with dating a Jewish guy. So Coretta had a little white chocolate going on early on.
I ain't mad at
Was she dating him
I
for like
thought,
2 years or so?
her. Mm.
yeah, she really had a little jungle fever going on for a second, and really just, I guess, even at that time, which was kind of really unheard of. Again, you know, Coretta's born in the 1920s. I mean, so like during that time period, you know, even having, you know, we started talking about segregation and stuff like that. So to
Mhm.
be in an interracial relationship was a big thing. And so yeah, it was kind of interesting even to hear her perspective about that and how that came to be and how it kind of ended. But just several great stories, several different moments that really stood out to me. Just how involved she was. Again, I don't think I was fully aware of how pivotal she was within this movement. Not only during the time where Dr. Martin Luther King was very active in doing things, but also even after his assassination as well. Really, Isaiah mentioned, you know, ensuring that you know, Dr. Martin Luther King became a national and federal holiday. Even the lengths that she went to for getting the King Center, you know, built and funded and put in place, and the hardships you had just going through with different leaders and board members and all that stuff. So just a lot of good things that I really took from it. But again, I just think the poise and the dignity that she had was really kind of one of the key things that I identified with.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So coming to Miss Lake on this one, was there a moment or just a theme that was kind of really uh, pivotal for you that really had an impact as you're reading this story, My Life, My Love, My Legacy by Miss Coretta Scott King?
Well, the book did it had me side eyeing Jesse Jackson with all the stories. I was like, Jesse,
Mm-hmm.
you're wrong. But anyway, besides that, I actually really loved hearing about their marriage and their relationship. That because it gave like a humanity to like MLK and her. But I really
Mhm.
loved hearing about how he supported her because me, you know, I feel like I'm like her, a woman of purpose, and I have dreams of my own drive. Like she wanted to be like she was a musician and did all those things on her own. And I liked how he supported her. And I liked how even though, you know, sometimes he did, you know, try to, you know, say like, well, I'm called. She's like, well, I'm called too. You know, so I just like how they worked together as a couple and as wanting to be married myself. I was like, that's something. It gave me inspiration and to like hope to know that, you know, there will be a man like, you know, MLK that will support me and all my goals and all my visions and all my dreams, and you know we can work together on that. So I thought that was nice.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was good. And I think we kind of touched on it. I mean, we really got a behind the scenes story, um, you know, of Coretta Scott King. Again, she's historically known as kind of just the face of just of beauty and just elegance and just being, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King's wife. But there was much more to her, and I think this book really kind of tells that the alternative side of that and the pivotal part that she played into it in this overall movement for civil rights and just for justice. And again, not only here, just in the United States, but I mean across the globe. I mean, she was
Mhm.
doing international speaking engagements, all kind of stuff. I mean, she was really, like I said, I did mention it, you know, apartheid, South Africa. I mean, she was all over the place and really taking a stance for what she believed in. And I think she really did carry on the dream that Martin, I think she had it as well, and she was instrumental in that. So,
Mhm.
all right. So even talking about all that, I mean, just tons of information, tons of history and just historical context that was brought out through this book. So, in reading her memoir, did this book even all this information and just the things that she's done? Did it make you, I guess, kind of even reflect on your own life, or do you have a moment where you was like, like even questioning your own life and purpose or things of that sort? Was there a moment I guess, like that, or that spawned from even just reading this memoir? And I'm gonna come to Laria on this one. I'm gonna let you kick this one off. Was there a just reading this book, and again, just how impactful, how insightful it was? Did it cause you to kind of self-reflect at all about your own life?
Well, yeah, because of, and it's kind of what Kim just touched on, purpose and knowing why you're here. I think both of them were so successful because they were so driven at younger ages because they were in their 20s and early 30s doing all of this work and trying to raise a family and him being gone a lot of the times and her having to be there and take all these calls with death threats and different things happening. You know, they were both strong individuals in their own right, and they were both purposed people. So to me, it made me feel like whatever I feel I'm called to do, or whatever I feel like is my purpose, that I got to be, like Isaiah said, grabbing it by the horns and moving forward in it, you know, all gas, no brakes. And I feel like that's what they did. They went full steam ahead. They weren't, you know, they were just all the way in. And if you're going to be successful in anything, for me, reading that book, it made me say, you know what? I got to put my boots deep up in this to get whatever it is I'm purpose to do done. So it was very inspirational, especially from their humble beginnings of how they grew up, where they came from, to be known all over the world the way they were. But all they were trying to do was just what they felt they were supposed to do. And it wasn't like they were trying to get notoriety or anything. They were just in it. And so that was the inspiration that I got from it.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of jump in on this one. I think it's kind of been mentioned, and I think if you read this book, you really do see that her and Martin were both really operating within purpose. They used their God-given gifts and talents and really put them to work for the greater good. And so I think I will, you know, kind of continue your thoughts on that. Just really just the fact of operating within purpose, doing those things that you're passionate about, that you know, find joy and happiness in. And I think she was just as purposeful within the civil rights movement as Dr. Martin Luther King. Like I said, I just think he just became the face of the movement, and may have kind of overshadowed her a little bit in that. But I think, and again, sad that he was assassinated, sad that he was taken away from us prematurely, but I think this also allowed her to kind of step out in the forefront and really to really kind of operate at a different level and capacity as far as the movement and doing things at a even greater or larger level. So I agree, Laria. I think purpose was really the thing that reading this memoir kind of caused me to kind of reflect on. That was really making sure and just being aware of your purpose and that you're really operating within that. So, all right, coming to Kim on this one. Was there a moment of reflection or any just self-awareness from reading this memoir, My Life, My Love, My Legacy by Coretta Scott King?
Well, I agree with you both because my word was purpose. I was just like, she lived such a purpose life. And that made me reflect on my own life. And like she said, you know, she feels like everybody has a God-given purpose. Because she was low-key preaching in the book. I was like, she need to be like a pastor or something. But everybody has a purpose. And I think that, like she said, if you don't know it, you need to go, you know, try to find it and just go after it with everything in you. Because at the end of the day, she said, even if you fail a little at your purpose, you're still living your life. You're not just letting life pass you by. So that's what I took away from the book, making sure I'm living in my purpose and going after it with full gusto.
Okay, good. All right, let my brother wrap this question up, man. So was there any moment of self-reflection or just self-awareness that was really spawned by you reading this book?
You want the short version or the long version? I'm just playing. I'm gonna do a 4 for 4. Like, you know, I agree with all y'all. Like, you know, the purpose she lived in her purpose. You know, her writings, her teachings shows how, you know, resistance movements can change and alter policy and raise awareness and, you know, just impact cultural norms. But on the other hand, we now understand that the battle is ongoing. Each generation must commit to standing in injustice in all forms. And Chris, you also making me a quotes guy, because this quote is actually something I got from her, because I do love her words. You know, that the struggle is a never ending process and freedom is never really won. You earn it and you win it in every generation. And I know for some, you know, it's cliche to just say that you want to make the world a better place, but you know, me reflecting on my own life journey to, as you know, getting from her story, was that I do want to make, you know, the life a better place, that I want to create or accomplish something that just basically outlives me. And not saying it has to be reflected directly to me, but just something that, you know, my legacy or my heirs can come through and just won't have to fight or have a stronger hardship than I had to do. There's just something that can be left for them. And I think that's what her main goal of leaving, not just something for her children, just but for something just for all mankind. Because that's basically, she lived what she preached. She wanted to be and do something that would actually just benefit the whole wide world. She was basically a global leader, and that's something that she embodies till she took her last breath.
Okay, that was good, good. And I think we all kind of just found that. I mean, just reading her story was just kind of amazing. So if you haven't read this book, My Life, My Love, My Legacy by Coretta Scott King, definitely pick it up. Again, we all know about Dr. Martin Luther King, his movement for nonviolence and just trying to get civil rights for people, not only just Black people, for people across the board within this country and other countries as well. So, but we haven't heard as much about Coretta Scott King. And so this is a perfect way to educate yourself and to become aware of her and the work and effort that she put into this movement as well. So again, if you haven't read the book, definitely pick it up. It's a good read. We got 10s and 20s and 8s from us, 9s. So definitely go check it out. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. You know, again, we four friends in the book. We read books over here, but we also like to talk. We just kind of talk amongst friends. We kind of check in, see what's going on. We want you guys to kind of be a part of that conversation as well. So, again, new year, first of the month. We're in January 2023. How y'all feeling? How are y'all doing? Y'all good?
How y'all feel?
So, how y'all feel? And I really want to, I guess, kind of start this off, but I think it's a perfect time to have a discussion about mental health. So one of the themes that was kind of really uh, very evident even within this book was Coretta kind of talking about how Martin really just he battled with kind of anxiety and depression. You know, he was really hard on himself whenever things didn't go right, or if there was even violence in some of the marches that he was a part of, or people weren't trained properly. Like, he took it personally, and he really dealt with kind of anxiety and depression. And I think that's, again, it's one of those taboo topics and discussions that we don't really have within our community. We kind of talked about it before in other episodes within the Black community. So just really want to kind of check in with you guys, and even to know I guess your own methods or ways of kind of dealing with stress or mental health, like um considering that. And I think we've all experienced this with just still coming off of this pandemic, still trying to kind of get into a reset of kind of normalcy of kind of what we've known in the past. But like, how do you deal with mental health? And are you kind of aware or really self-aware of your own mental health, or even any advice you may have for, I guess, someone else in this area? Look, who want to kick this off? I'm gonna open this one up to whoever.
I'll go.
I'm gonna come up. All right.
Might as well go on and take it on. Uh, but yeah, mental health is very serious. And I think I was just having a discussion with a friend of mine about how we didn't know aging parents is like a big deal once you get in your 30s, 40s, and even parents when they pass away, and people close to you, aunts, uncles, as you're getting older, everybody's getting older, and you have to deal with death a lot more, sickness a lot more, and sometimes we're taught, I just keep going, but how long can you do that? So I believe, of course, in God, in Jesus Christ. I believe that He's the foundation of everything. And then on top of that, getting some help when you can't stop crying, or you can tell some people undereat or overeat, or you're working a lot more. You put it into other things. You exercising twice a day because you're trying to deal with what's going on. Doing obsessive things sometimes can let you know. But for me, I know with anxiety, my brain can go like all night thinking about 800,000 scenarios. And I have to stop myself and say, look, we have to trust God at some point. This is not in your control. You can't control everything. So yeah, it's an ongoing thing. I don't think it's something you're just like, oh, I'm good, don't have any worries, I'm straight, no mental problems, no whatever. But when you start feeling yourself getting ready to spiral, I think you have to stop. But you have to be aware, self-aware, to know where you are. But if you're not, then that's the worst place to be. So, if you're having problems or whatnot, talk to somebody about it. And don't talk to somebody who's not licensed, not, they don't, they have the same struggles. We talk about our problems together. But nobody's getting any better. That's the thing we do. We just talk about them each other. Nobody's getting help. So, talk to somebody that can actually direct you in the right direction so you can, get a lot of things off of your chest and move forward so you're not, because I'm telling you, you can go down fast if you really allow your mind to just go, because our brains are very powerful. In the same way we can power up stuff and move in purpose, we can go the hell in a handbasket with some of this stuff. So we just gotta, know where we are. Self-awareness is very big. So yeah.
That's good. Kim, Isaiah, y'all have any I guess any tools or tips or even things that you do yourself to kind of make sure that your mental health or kind of awareness is in a good place?
Yeah, I can go. Before, growing up, I used to think that mental health and anxiety was some type of taboo. Like that's something that you just deal with it, sweeping on the rug. Black folks don't like to talk about that. We just gonna make it happen, keep going like a robot. But until it hit me, until it came crashing on me, on my chest, like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to process that. Like it was something all new for me. So like L'Oreal stated earlier, I had to find something that helped me deal with that. And I know for me, dealing with it as far as actually working out. And that's how I actually dealt with it. And when I mean I worked out, meaning that the problems that I was facing, I actually left it there in the gym. Like it's just a certain time of the day, some time of the week that no one is not going to get in contact with me. That's the time that I need to focus and center on myself. Like the things that I'm going through, sometimes that you have to be centered and focused and read and understand and get the grasp and the knowledge for yourself. It's the time that I just can't deal with anything else. I have to be centered and focused on what's heading into my direction. Like I think that, like L'Oreal said, that we all believe in Jesus Christ. And sometimes that he brings you to a point that he wants you to actually be focused on him. Like certain things happen. I've realized that certain things have happened to my life for me to be centered and me to be focused. If I didn't have any problems, I wouldn't know the power of prayer. I wouldn't know the power of reading and manifestation and the power of, going to a higher power, to learning a new thing and how to actually deal with this thing. And not just saying only with Jesus Christ, but I also had to reach out to a professional. Like L'Oreal say, I just can't be talking to any and everybody about the problem. Like it got to be somebody that's just going to give me that strong, powerful, like you need to do this. This is some homework that you need to do, and this is how we can get to this next level. And I think that's how I actually started dealing with. When I start centering myself in my own focus, that's how I start dealing with that anxiety. And like I stated earlier, like until it actually hit me, I thought it was taboo, but anxiety and mental health is real. And anybody who's dealing with it, I suggest that you actually find some good outlets and actually find some good people that you can just talk to and just discuss your problems.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
good. That's good.
I'll say for me, I agree with both of y'all. Of course, God, number one. I'm a proponent of therapy. I think therapy really helps you to see areas that you may not be looking at, or you may be stuck in certain areas, and there's a professional out there that can give you tools to help you overcome anything you're facing or what you're going through. So, number one, after God, I think therapy is great. And after that, I think learning, one, to be honest with yourself about where you are and what you're feeling, having close friends that you can be open with and really, allow yourself to be open so that other people can pour into you when needed. Also, I think boundaries is a big thing. For me, I didn't have good boundaries, especially with other people, especially with work. I just didn't have good boundaries, be stressed out and all that. But I think having boundaries and sticking with them really helps with your mental health and pouring into yourself. I know also with me, I can have a tendency to put other things first. But, as they say, like on the plane, you got to put your mask on first before you can help other people. And I think that I'm working on investing and pouring into myself first and making myself a priority, and that's helping with my stress in other areas. So those are some tips that I'm using personally that I think you should look into for your mental health.
Good.
That was very good.
That's good. That's
Mhm.
good. Well, look, I'm like my boy Martin. Look, I get stressed out. I need to go to the beach. Take me to the island or somewhere. Like I need.
Me too.
But I think you
Maybe
all
we'll
bring up
see.
good point. I think you all bring up good points, and I think just really being aware of kind of where you are, and when you do get to that point of being stressed or anxious or even depressed, to have the proper outlets and just really to be aware of that. I mean, life is hard, life is difficult, and so
Mhm.
it won't always be good. I mean, there's ups and downs, but how you navigate those situations and how you respond to them, I think, are critical. And so
Mm-hmm.
having the right tools at your disposal, whether that be, fitting with working out or some kind of physical exercise or having friends or coworkers that you talk to, even or professional help, or just being able to really kind of hit that reset button to get to a space where like, hey, I just need to kind of
Mhm.
let it go for a while, unwind, relax. Just being aware and knowing these things, I think, are critical. And like we said, we're still coming off of this pandemic, still trying to get back to a state of normalcy. So I think we've all had a bout with mental health, and I hope that we're all kind of better aware, have a better awareness now, and are better suited to kind of handle just the unknowns of life. Because like I said, I don't think anybody expected us to be in this space, in this state. So we're in a new year, new month. Let's all really try to focus on our mental health and make sure that we're good, and utilize the tools and the resources that we have at our disposal. So yeah, I just again, I wanted to check in with y'all, make sure y'all was good. Y'all got good advice for these people that's listening and tuned in. Any of you guys that are watching right now and listening, if y'all have any tips, feel free to drop them in the comments. We would love to hear from you guys as well. So, but
Please.
mental health is a big deal, and we can't take it lightly. So, make sure that you're good, and if you need professional help, definitely reach out and get that as well. All right, just wrapped up this book, My Life, My Love, My Legacy. Great book. Coretta Scott King, girl, you did your thing on this one. Hate that she's no longer with us, but she's left us a lasting legacy in this book format. So again, if you guys haven't read this book, if you don't know about Coretta Scott King, definitely pick it up. A lot of great information and really enlightens you on her life and her journey. Growing up in Alabama, picking cotton to being in the White House, singing internationally. I mean, the girl done did it. She done did it all. She done did it all. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was just great to hear that
That's amazing.
story. And we've talked about mental health. We're checking in. It's the new year, new month. And so we just wanted to check in and talk about mental health and kind of make sure we're all good as well. So good discussion. I like hearing from y'all, man. You know, I like getting that feedback, that input. Y'all always, you know, that's what we do here on Four Friends in the Book. But you know what time it is. We have it every episode, and we bringing it back to 2023, baby. We ain't done. It's rant time. We are now stepping into the rant. So if you're new to this segment of our show, 60 seconds, uninterrupted. We don't debate, we don't discuss, we don't really contest it. And it's coming from none other than my brother, Mr. Rant Man himself, S3Ep3. Look at him. He getting hype over here. We never know what we getting. It's always new to us. So my brother, kicking out the new year, January 2023. I'm excited, man. I don't know what I'm getting, but I know you coming hard. So starting now, go.
Okay. Move over Meharry, Charles Drew, Howard, and Morehouse College because 2 more universities will be joining the list of HBCUs with medical schools. The programs will be located at Xavier University in New Orleans and Morgan State University in Baltimore. The programs are aimed to create a pipeline of Black doctors. These positions will be vital to filling in the healthcare gaps in communities of colors, stemming the ties against a long historic legacy. And this will also be the first time in 45 years for an HBCU to open a new medical school. Medical racism isn't dead. It takes place daily, meaning that the basic and compassionate healthcare Black folks deserve is often non-existent. But research shows that Black doctors, many of whom are HBCU graduates, can impact their care through their communities that they receive. HBCUs have continued producing a multitude of Black doctors, graduating almost 10% of Black medical school graduates in this country. These findings also suggest that the Black medical students in PWI schools may experience a greater everyday discrimination relative to their HBCU peers that lead to reduce their perception of their abilities to succeed within medical school. And we must become intentional about advertising that HBCUs are still top institutions for educating Black students and creating solutions for the Black community. All institutions possess a competitive advantage. Consider your HBCU's competitive advantage and advertise it. And that's that on that.
That's good, bro. Look, once again, educating us with this rant. And so again, we appreciate you for look, man, just keeping us in the know. I didn't know about this. So look, I appreciate you, man. You done educated your boy once again.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So Four Friends in the Book podcast, we read books, we have discussion, we review them, we hit y'all with these rants. And of course, we want you guys to follow along with us each and every month. So Isaiah, tell them about the book we have coming up for next month.
Guys, before we let you go, we are coming with a banger. You know her from being the first African-American woman to be the first lady. You know her from her first book, Becoming. But now we are going to do a deep dive in her second sophomore book, The Light That We Carry by Michelle Obama. And you do not want to miss it. Lorea, please tell them when they can view the next show.
You guys can visit with us and have fun with us on Four Friends in a Book every third Thursday of every month.
And to stay up to date on us, you can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. And if you haven't already, like this video you're watching now and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
All right, as always, guys, we appreciate you for your support, for sticking with us here on Four Friends in a Book. And let's continue to read, let's learn, let's grow, and let's have a discussion here on Four Friends in a Book. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.